going, Dave? Ready, Tim?
I'm ready.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Payson. Cheryl, I guess we have Chuck Shire up there today?
Yes, we do.
Oh, great. Good deal. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. Work session Tuesday, May 12th at 10 o'clock. And if we'd stand and say the pledge. Homero, you lead us in the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Homero. So today we're going to get back on track and get to those items we had to set aside on facilities and public works. I really look forward to this, and I know it's going to be good information. So we'll start with 2A, regular agenda items, information discussion on current and future public works department projects as outlined in the county's 5-year capital improvement plan. Morning, Steve, you're it.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Can you have an update from different departments within Public Works? Have the landfill department, floodplain department, the general services department, and then our capital plan. And if there's no objections, I thought, and each manager for the respective departments are here, I thought we would start with floodplain, then go to landfill, and then general services, and I'll wrap it up if that's fine with everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I believe Dard's in Payson to speak to the floodplain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Dard. You can go ahead and take it from there.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm glad to be here to explain what we're doing for the citizens of Gila County. We've got a few projects going, which are kind of long-term projects. We've been working with FEMA on them. We've been in discussions with FEMA for a few years, actually, and the time's arrived when they're now ready to and willing to work with us to help us with our needs to more accurately define flood hazards so we can better help our residents protect their life and property, and also minimize the expense to them in getting just basic good information about the flood risk. These projects are in addition to the routine issuance of floodplain use permits and monitoring rainfall and stream flow to help alert residents of the potential for flooding. The first project I want to mention is the LIDAR. Now, this project data was received last year. I mention it now because it's the base data for a lot of our projects in the future. And you can see on the screen, these are elevation points. They have a location on the Earth's surface and an elevation assigned to them. Each of these little blue dots around the picture of the courthouse there has this elevation information on it. So you see it's quite a dense network of data that we have at our disposal to use in different means. This digital data is used for various purposes. Our staff uses it with the ArcGIS software and the AutoCAD software, and it's good information, accurate to about a fraction of a foot elevation. And it's the first step to being able to provide flooding elevations and extensive flooding so residents can build in the proper manner to protect themselves and their investment in their home without excessive engineering costs. The next step is the BLE project, the base level engineering. That's FEMA's term. And that also will be funded by FEMA 100%, as was the LIDAR. This is a process for flood mapping areas that are shown on the map as a Zone A. Flood Zone A has no elevations on it, and it's very approximate. And also water courses which have not yet been studied, which are, somewhat problematic for us as well. Now, the BLE process uses this LiDAR data in a somewhat automated manner to give flooding information at greatly reduced cost with good accuracy. And I say that it's going to be good data, but it's not quite as detailed as the detailed flood studies, assuming the same level of accuracy of the base topographic information. And that's why the floodplains noted as Zone AE, which have elevations in a detailed study, the BLE process cannot be used to correct them. That's a separate process. The assumption is this is a less accurate methodology to study them, although the topography is much better than what the old studies were based on. So it's probably at least as good of information as what we have now. Now, no flood elevations will be put on flood maps as a result of this project. But what it will do is give us all this information, flood elevations, extent of flooding, and have it for various return periods, 10-year, 50-year, 100-year, whatever. And all the backup data, including the computer flood models, are delivered to the county for our staff to use, and this will be a very valuable benefit. A tentative request has been submitted to include some unstudied water courses, and should the board decide to proceed, FEMA will include that in their project. This includes water courses through areas of private land which are partially developed or expected to develop in the near future, and generally for areas where there's at least a square mile or so of drainage area draining into it. And FEMA will automatically study the flood zone A's that they have on the current maps. We're requesting about 96 new stream miles with this request, and FEMA will determine, presumably based on budget, how much of that they can accommodate, but they're very willing to do what they can for us. And they're expecting to start the project this month if they get the negotiations lined up with their contractor. Once we have the data from this base level engineering product, the county is not obligated to do a letter of map revision and make unstudied water courses into regulatory floodplains. We have that option. The board could adopt the previously unstudied areas as administrative floodplains, that is locally regulated but not on the FEMA maps, and they could also be used just as good information for flood zones that are currently regulated under the grading and drainage ordinance. And of course, we could put them on an internal or external public GIS map so people can know where the flood hazard is and make it easier to build safely. The project results can also be used by homeowners as flood elevation data when applying for a letter of map amendment to remove their homes from the floodplain based on elevation. And in a future project with FEMA, the actual official maps could be revised based on this information, with flood zone D, which is an unstudied area, being replaced by flood zone A, which is actually flood prone, and flood zone X, which is not floodplain, so that we could basically eliminate this questionable zone, and people could have much lower flood insurance premiums as a result of that. Now, the maps up there on the screen show a couple of different ways that this data can be displayed. The first one shows an example of a 10 and 100-year floodplain map. There's the blue area is the 100-year, the 10 is the light blue line within it. So that could be used for that kind of analysis. The lower one actually shows flood depth. Since we have good ground elevation data now and good flood elevation data, we can compute the flood depth, and that's something that people can relate to more when they're looking at, well, how high am I going to need to build so that my floor doesn't get flooded, for example. Okay, so that's probably the next project that's coming up. Project 3 is the risk map discovery process. This also would be a FEMA-funded project, but the county would need to contribute some staff time to the project. Now, this is scheduled to begin in about 2 years. It's a multi-hazard risk assessment process with input from all stakeholders, municipalities, and the public. It should be completed about 5 years from its start. The mitigation measures for the risks will be determined, and these identified measures can be used to improve the existing hazard mitigation plan. And this creates a list of hazard mitigation projects which could be candidates for grants when opportunities arise. And priorities for new flood studies would also be developed. This process uses all the information gathered to determine which areas of the watershed require mapping, risk assessment, or mitigation planning assistance through a FEMA risk map project. These risk map projects would be more than likely a cost share with the feds contributing. I don't want to quote an exact number. Typically, it's somewhere around 75%. And then local input, either in cash or in kind. Why is this all important? Well, in many parts of the county, the floodplains have not been restudied since the original maps in 1985. The maps have been made prettier over the years, and they've put an aerial photo background in them in 2007, but the basic studies have, for most areas of the county, have not been updated. And because flood hazards change over time, this effort provides a great opportunity to take a comprehensive look at the components and activities that contribute to our communities and our watershed's flood risk. In addition to providing another perspective, participating in this process will increase our understanding of the flood risk and help us identify proactive steps that we can take to protect our community from flood losses of life and property that often accompany flooding. So county staff are beginning preparations now, and that's part of why we're bringing this information to the board. We wanted to give you a chance to have input and provide guidance. The BLE results, which should be complete by the time the discovery process starts, will be one input. FEMA has also reviewed the existing detailed flood studies to see which floodplains need to be restudied, and we have also provided input into that process based on local knowledge. Now, one thing to note is that this process is done by watershed rather than political boundaries. So it's not going to take the whole county into consideration, but it will take the most populous areas and do the most good for the most people, and we've steered them towards that approach. The two watersheds are the Tonto Creek watershed, which goes from the rim on the north to Roosevelt Lake on the south, and goes over as far as Payson, and it doesn't include the East Verde River, but it does go, over to Payson. The Upper Salt River watershed goes from Roosevelt Lake up and includes the Globe area. Okay, the fourth project is the CTP, the Cooperating Technical Partner Program. It's basically an agreement with FEMA to cooperate with them on flood mapping projects. And it's possible that if we get through with this other project, we'll have some projects that we might want to partner with them to accomplish. They're going to do whatever they can. They've committed that they'll do what they can with their available budget to see how far it goes and help us out. There's a sample template here. The details of this can be negotiated with the county attorney's office and FEMA. Either party can end the agreement at any time by sending a letter stating their intent to exit. From FEMA's perspective, this can be an agreement in perpetuity, or it can be a limited duration at the county's option. And so there's really no risk to the county for entering into the partnership. But when projects are awarded, the framework will already be in place to work on this partnership. And once a project is awarded, the programmatic responsibilities will take hold, and it'll be for the period of performance of the project. But like I said, the framework would already be in place when we need to do a project, if we just can agree to this partnership at this point in time, get it all arranged. Well, thank you for your time. I'm available at any time if you have questions on any of these projects.
You bet, Dard. Thank you. And if you'll hang on a minute, you're going to have some questions. So, Tommy, you got any comments or questions for Dard?
You bet, Dard. Thank you. And if you'll hang on a minute, you're going to have some questions. Yeah, comments or questions?
Woody, it's going to take me a minute because I'm listening to it on the YouTube, which is far better sound, but what lags about a minute between what we're really doing and what comes through on YouTube. So I'm excusing me that to start with, okay?
You bet. Just hang in there, and we'll come back to you, Tim.
I'm ready. I just have. Let me turn this down. It just takes a minute to get all the damn things dealt with here that I need to make it work. Hang on.
Okay.
All righty. To start with, I really like the fact that we're finally doing some of this. The LIDAR in particular, Mr. Chair, I was involved in a situation years ago that the top of willows that had grown up in a creek is what was being used as baseline rather than the bottom of the creek. Willows had grown up in it, and whatever at the time, the technology and the use at the time was taking photos and things, all right, of at least in this part of the area, but we were getting false readings by quite a bit sometimes because of the vegetation that had grown up in these creeks, and then what we were using at the time couldn't differentiate between what was the top of willows versus the bottom of the creeks, as a for instance. So I appreciate the new technology, and I appreciate us being right in there taking advantage of it. We'll get a far better product. I also believe that the whole conversation about flooding, the other thing that I like about all of this is that it turns it from being what could be perceived as arbitrary decisions into decisions that are truly data-driven. I like the fact that folks could go actually look at their piece of property and see where it fits within the floodplain, not because we said so, but because the data says so. And then my other comment, though, on the watershed studies, we agree we need to be doing that. I know that the Tonto Creek and the Salt River mostly just affects us, but I also know that the divide between the Tonto watershed and the Verde watershed sits right there between the college and the next building on this, and right through there. That the things that are on the college side of 260 go into the Tonto Creek. the things that are on the other side of that little hump all runs into the salt, which makes into the Verde, which makes nearly all of Payson, all of Pine Strawberry, all of that part of the world not being considered in this conversation. And I'm wondering if, in fact, isn't Verde Valley or somebody doing a Verde study, and is there some way we could partner or take advantage of putting our 2 cents worth into that study and getting the results from that study? It probably is my only real question first for Dard.
Yes, FEMA came to us, and in their discussions, we learned that they had budgeted for 2 watersheds, and they didn't. That was all they could do at this point in time. So we decided that we could do the most good for the most people by selecting these 2 that we did. Now, in the future, yes, there will be an opportunity to study the East Verde watershed and possibly down south of Globe, Dripping Springs or around Hayden Winkleman or something like that. I did request some BLE studies for areas like the East Verde River, and they seemed willing to do that, though it kind of expand out the scope enough to do that. But the full hazard analysis at this point in time will be limited to the Tonto Creek watershed and the Upper Salt River watershed. But we're still working with them. We're still trying to get these other areas studied. So it's a work in progress. We just kind of have to deal with the federal time frame, which is, it's often more elongated than what we're used to looking at.
Well, that's good, Dar, because truly, East Verde would pick up, just that piece of it would pick up Pine Strawberry and the vast majority of Payson. The part that would then run on into Rye Creek, we could pick up any information there. You can pick up back down there on Tonto Creek, back on the Tonto watershed, that little piece there. But before it's over with, I think we're going to want to have, it just is a truly, the Tonto, Star Valley sits in the Tonto, but Payson really and truly mostly sits on the Verde, and truly on that East Verde arm of it. So thank you for keeping track of that for me.
Welcome.
And Mr. Chair, that probably is it for now.
Okay, Tommy, thank you. Tim?
Yeah, on this data, it seems being a general contractor and dealing with permits and things of that, it seems that we have been working with FEMA maps that are way, way outdated. And is this data going to be in conflict with a lot of those maps on some of these building permits and stuff that have been in the past where people haven't been able to build because of the FEMA map, which now some of this data may prove that the FEMA maps were wrong at the time or not as accurate as we needed them to be? Because we've been in situations where we've been with people and told them that they would have to hire their own engineer to prove FEMA wrong. Is this data going to prove FEMA wrong and help us get our county better equipped of what the actual flood areas are and aren't?
Yes, that's very possible that we could eliminate some areas from the floodplain that were mapped incorrectly. It may also include a few areas, but at least we'll know that that's an actual flood hazard. The other thing that this will give us, if they are needing to do something where they have to engineer their own solution, we have a base model, computer model that we can give them, and if they want to see the effect of what they're building, they just need to plug in their information into this existing model, which saves them a lot of time as well, if it did come to that.
Yeah, I think it's great because, yeah, a lot of the old FEMA maps were accepted, and a lot of them aren't really as correct as we would like them to be.
So I hope this data will help us get some of that straightened out.
Chairman and board members, Dart, this is Homer. I'm just going to help you out a little bit here because I think what you've offered the board is really very exciting news, and I'm going to try to summarize it very quickly for you. We want to be cooperating technical partners with FEMA because, number one, it helps us with grants, and number two, it puts us in a position to work on all the things that Dart is talking about. And that was the last thing that he mentioned. LIDAR is a done thing. We have that mapping. It shows the elevation of the land. And actually, LIDAR makes possible the other item that Dart talked about, the base land engineering. Base land engineering is going to take all the basic areas that have not been, that we don't have a base flood elevation for, like an A zone, and the 96 miles that Dart talked about, in addition to areas that are not mapped at all, and FEMA is going to give us a elevation for flooding purposes, for building, where you won't have to use an engineer to determine at what elevation you should build and in the future. So it's going to make it cheaper for the homeowner, less costly for the homeowner or the contractor to determine how they can build in floodplains that are not studied in detail. The last thing that Dart talked about was areas that are studied in detail, the A zones that have detailed information that FEMA has already put out. And normally those are the maps that we say are incorrect. Those are the maps that determine a level of elevation of flooding, and we say, or an extent of the floodway or the floodplain, the studied areas. And normally, like here in Globe, we believe that some of those areas are in error. And so that's one of the things that Dart talked about was risk map discovery. I think is the word that the terminology that Dart used. That is where we can go and say, okay, some of these areas are incorrect and the floodplain is not mapped correctly, and that's where we can play a role with FEMA to make some of those corrections. Unfortunately, in the time frame that Dart laid out, LIDAR is done. Cooperating technical partners requires a signature from the board. Base land engineering is coming. It's on the horizon. They're going to do it for the A zones, whether we like it or not. FEMA is, and it'll be free information. We don't have to incorporate it as a regulatory requirement. We can if we want to, but that's coming. Dart's trying to add 96 miles to that. The risk map discovery is two years away to start the process, and so that's kind of like the time frame. A base land engineering for me, base level engineering for me is a very exciting thing where you're able to tell a homeowner you're not been studied in detail, but here is some information that FEMA gave us that we can respect. We'll respect it. You should respect it as well. So I'm just trying to kind of lay out the time frame for, of the things that Dart talked about. There's really some very exciting news in what he brought to us. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you.
Got anything else, Tim?
No, I'm good.
You're good? So, start with Dart. I really appreciate all this, and I really am excited about maybe straightening out some of our floodplain issues, because I know there's a lot of issues in there. So my question to you would be, Dart, if you look at it from now, and I'm not asking for absolute figures or anything, but with the folks that we have that we've dealt with over the years with floodplain issues, and where we're at now and where we're going to be going in the future, what I'm taking from you is that this is going to improve all that. It's going to be a lot easier. It's going to be better for our property owners and so forth, builders and so forth. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, and I'm glad of that. I am really glad of that. So, for example, and I know that here in Globe, it's the city of Globe. I'm sure working with you or Steve or Homer or whoever on our floodplain issues that go down through the middle of Globe. How is that going to help that situation? Because I've had property owners stand there and show me the boundaries of the floodplain to where they could actually build in the middle of the wash and be outside of the floodplain. So I'm excited to know that this is going to be an improvement, And I would expect that this is going to help that situation a lot. Is that correct?
Well, that's part of the process, is identifying those areas and starting studies. Okay, that's the BLEs will not take care of the existing studies that have elevations. However, as an example in Globe, we're now on FEMA's radar, and they're scheduling to restudy part of Pinal Creek their next federal fiscal year. So the ball is rolling.
Okay, good deal. And so hopefully soon we can get through those issues and we can get back on track there. So looking at the watersheds, that you showed on the map, where does our reservations that lie inside our county, where does that put them? How does this new process affect the reservations?
Well, the tribes were not included in the LIDAR, and FEMA negotiated that with them. I don't know whether it was at their request or FEMA's, or if they have alternate funding sources to get the information they need. But that's not included in the LIDAR, so therefore they won't have the data to do BLEs. So they'll have to work with FEMA on that. We don't have the tribal areas on our flood maps either. They're kind of their own entity, and it seems like they may want to be, but anyways, FEMA has limited it to the non-tribal areas, and mostly private land too. So the other federal lands are not included unless it's incidental, and there's a couple private areas, and it's easier and cheaper just to map the area in between for some reason. But it's really geared towards private, non-tribal lands.
So I don't know, you or Homer, either one. So hearing that, my assumption would be that the tribes will work through BIA on their watershed issues. Would that be right, Dard? To FEMA?
I don't know the inner workings of how the BIA works. I would assume that's probably they would work the BIA and FEMA on that, but that's just an assumption.
So yeah, and so I do want to get this clear, because that's one thing that I've found with all three reservations. I mean, Tono Apaches are right there integrated with Payson, kind of a different deal. But White Mountain Apaches in San Carlos, I like to keep that straight in my head, and especially where we overlap with the reservations, where they say they have issues that's actually on reservation, but inside our county. That's where I'm getting to. And so, Homer, do you have information on that, or how that's going to work?
Chairman and board members, many of the things that Dart has talked about have to do with the National Flood Insurance Program, helping homeowners buy flood insurance for their homes. The tribes typically do not participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. I don't know if these three tribes do or don't, but it's very likely that they don't. And so, and Dart just mentioned that LIDAR actually was not, they did not run the LIDAR into some of these tribes. And so the things that we're talking about almost don't pertain to them. They do have flooding issues, and that's probably with BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs, that they would have to take that up with.
So does either one of you know if they're going to include the LIDAR to the tribes in the future? Or, I mean, is that a proposal, or they're not going to look at it?
I don't have an answer. I may perhaps start.
Dard, do you?
Well, I think the Tono Apache probably has LIDAR just because of their proximity to Payson, but no, I don't know what their procedure is for those tribal areas.
Okay.
There are some areas, non-tribal areas, we can get LIDAR for because they're trying to trim the scope down to match the budget, but those are mostly wilderness areas and, forest land doesn't have private development in it.
Okay, so I'll be doing some checking on this just to kind of see where this is headed, and I'll let you guys know what I find out too. So just to recap this, Dart, if as a private landowner and I want to know where my floodplain boundaries are or whatever, I'll be able to just simply pull up this map on a county website and be able to figure that out. Is that where we're headed?
That's where we're headed, yes.
Okay. Tommy, do you have anything else you'd like to comment on or a question?
Mr. Chair, I truly am glad we're doing this. And if we'll look at our communities, we're covering the ones that are the most affected, whether we're talking Tunnel Basin or Young or Globe, those communities that have a significant waterway going through the middle of them. And we are picking up that. I sympathize with wanting to know what we're doing on the reservations, although I don't know, they'd be using it for different reasons, and they may not even have thought about the different things they could. It could help them also decide ultimately where they build, because San Carlos, of course, in particular, has a significant waterway going through them as well. But I truly am glad that we're here with these projects and we're looking down the road with this information. I think it will make the Board of Supervisors, their planning and zoning, the whole process a lot more easier and more reliable and more definitive and more all of it from one end to the other. I think it'll make what we do, because what we're really doing is helping people look at things that they haven't thought about in the piece of property that they're trying to build on, and what the issues coming at them are going to be, and how and where, and as our creeks change, we may be able to have in real time keep that up. And I'm thinking about Tunnel Creek in particular. Our other creeks we can pretty well keep cleaned out and basically in the waterway that we understand. Tunnel Creek is one that we're going to have to keep an eye on pretty closely forever as the water course shifts because of the downstream infrastructure. But, Mr. Chair, I'm just glad we're doing it. I'm glad of the information it's going to give us, and I'm particularly glad of being able to put it in an interactive fashion in a way on our website so folks can go look for themselves as to what we're talking about. And that's it so far, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
No, it's just something that's needed to be looked at for a long, long time, and I'm glad it's here, and I'm glad we're working with it because, as you say, we have all sat with individuals that have had difficulty with FEMA maps, and so I think it's a great thing that we're getting them looked at and getting things back where they need to be.
You bet. And yeah, I do truly thank you for doing this, Dart, and Public Works and everybody working with FEMA and getting this done. This is something that's been too long coming. There's been a lot of hardships over floodplains in the years, and hopefully this is the start to fixing a lot of that. Unfortunately, like I said, there's been individual property owners that's been beat up pretty hard on floodplains. So I'm all about everything we can do to correct as much or all of this as we can, going forward. So I really want to thank you guys in the department for doing that. Steve, you next? Whatever you got next going on?
I was going to have recycling landfill management.
Right on. Good. Thank you, Dard. Appreciate it. Morning, Kenny.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. There's just a real quick overview of both landfills with numbers from 2019 and the first 3 months of 2020. Buckhead Mesa first. I have to brag about Buckhead Mesa, the location of it. I bagged all the other landfill managers. I have the best landfill location-wise. So that's brag. Staffed by one supervisor, 3 senior operators, and 1 scale house attendant. Our hours are 8 to 4. That's year-round at this landfill. 2019 tonnage, 21,740 tons. Revenue, a little over $1 million. Metal that we recycled, 495 tons. 220 tons for tonnage for 2020, 3,300. And then revenue so far this year, for the first 3 months, is 51,519. Buckhead Mesa Landfill takes in an average tonnage of 21,000 tons. With the expansion that was completed in the summer of 2018, the life is expected to be extended to roughly 2025. Dollar day results for Buckhead Mesa 2019, 3,714 vehicles with an average of 309 vehicles per dollar day. That's an 8-hour day. So do the math there, and that gives you a pretty good average how many vehicles an hour. 2019 tonnage, 1,328 with an average tonnage per dollar day of 110. Reduced revenue for the year, $70,555.76. For so far, the first 3 months of dollar day, we did 736 vehicles, 328 tons. Reduced revenues thus far was $17,457. Okay, Russell Gulch, staffed by 1 supervisor, 3 senior operators, 1 operator, and 1 scale house attendant. Operating hours for right now, summer, is 6 to 4, and then we switch to 7 to 5 in the winter. For this landfill, tonnage for 2019 was 37,263. Revenue was 1,081,000. 265 tons of metal was recycled. 2020 tonnage, this is thus far January to March, was 14,479. So Russell Gulch has increased average tonnage of 21.5 to 37. So there's been an increase at this landfill as far as yearly tonnage. And the expansion is planned in the next few years that will extend the capacity of this landfill to 2034. Dollar day results for Russell Gulch, 2019, 4,437 vehicles with an average being 369 vehicles per dollar day. This is in a 10-hour day as well. 2019 tonnage was 1,412 with an average tonnage of 117 tons per dollar day. Lost revenue for the year, $75,000. 2020 dollar day, 1,061 vehicles, 290 tons. Lost revenue thus far, first 3 months, $15,454. And then some of the cleanup events that I've been able to capture since I've been here since last June, June, is we had a young cleanup, took in 22.42 tons. Gila took in 8.05. We had a cleanup in Miami, 10.73. Globe cleanup, 19 tons, 153 tires. And then the recycling of plastics, given the market, we're only capturing plastics this time. We've so far recycled 4.55 tons. We handed out 138 bicycles this year with the program that we have in place with the Department of Corrections, which I feel is an awesome program. Earth Day 2019, we had 500 gift bags that were handed out to kids. 2020 Earth Day, with the pandemic, the COVID, we had 0 participants. The theme was conservation and what it means to me, and I'm going to carry that over into next year. So I'm excited about that. Any
Good.
questions?
Thank you, Kenny. Tommy, do you have any questions or comments for Kenny?
Mr. Chair, I just appreciate what we do at that landfill and how well we do it. I, particularly under the guidelines that we caused it to operate, I'm concerned always, of course, about the lost revenues and how we're going to make that up, because we do have them on the enterprise conversation. The one thing that I was thinking, though, as Kenny was going through this, right now we have a porta potty and a garbage dump site for the folks that drift through Payson, to try to relieve the efforts of the Circle K's and so forth. It occurred to me that I'd like to see if we couldn't keep track of how much garbage we actually are collecting in this effort. I look for it to go on at least through the summer, or at least until the forest opens back up. And wondering if Kenny could ask our landfill up here to just keep track of what comes in under the headline of garbage from the landfill, from the event center, and from Star Valley.
Yes.
And that's probably my only real question right now, other than just kudos to the landfill for doing really a fine job as they do. And thank you, Kenny.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that is something that we are tracking. We noticed there wasn't that much trash that was in the one there by the fairgrounds. So I don't know if that was just, it hadn't been advertised yet. I haven't heard about Star Valley, but I'm sure it was overflowing.
I seen some pictures this morning of Star Valleys, and it had a lot more trash in it.
Did it?
So yeah.
So it's working
Yeah.
out good.
Tim?
Yeah. Explain to me lost revenue.
Okay. Lost revenue.
How did we lose money?
Okay, given on a dollar day. Okay, this last April is a prime example. We were supposed to have had a dollar day. And that day, we took in over $4,000 that day. Okay, whereas any given Saturday, we're normally going to take in $3,000 to $4,000. On those dollar days, we're only taking in the vehicles that come in. So if we have 350 vehicles come in, that's all we make for that day. That's the profit. That's it. Then we still have to take out the 25 cents per ton to pay to ADQ. We have to pay our operators, the overtime that's involved in that, and just the chaotic nature of the day and the loss compaction that we deal with.
Okay. Do we recycle tires?
We do.
Do we recycle metal?
We do.
Do we recycle plastic?
We do.
Okay. With those dollar dump days, as people getting in for $1, is that not usually a heavy metal day because they're bringing us refrigerators and hot water heaters and things that weigh more, so they take them on dollar dump day rather than a regular day to save them costs in getting rid of some of that stuff that's being recycled?
I haven't seen that as far as the metals and the appliances.
Okay. Well, I've been to some of these
But yeah,
some of these cleanup deals, and like when you do a dumpster at Gila,
yes.
I know that it's difficult to sort out a dumpster once it gets to the landfill. So I've been taking my truck and trailer for metal and tires and things at some of these cleanup areas, so that just trash and garbage or mattresses or whatever go actually in the dumpster. And I usually fill my truck and trailer with metals and things of this nature, which go to the metal pile, which go to recycle. So I'm just wondering, if we, on some of the lost revenues, if we look at some of the recycling and things, is that lost revenue accurate if we just do the tonnage of what we're not getting money for, but the amount of tonnage that we are getting money for? Is just another way to look at it. And I appreciate what you're doing with the landfills very, very much. I hope to see the dollar dump day continue after the COVID deal, when we can get back online with things and have full crews. Because I've been in the public a lot. I've seen the difference that it's made in some of our areas, and have heard from the Forest Service and places that some of these areas are not getting as much trash as they once were with the dollar dump day. So I guess I understand where you're coming from. I'm just being protective of the dollar dump day because I think it's doing a lot of good. And the thing of it is I know the landfill is recycling the bicycles. Well, that's great. What's that costing us? That's lost revenue. We're not getting anything out of the time and money and effort that we're rebuilding bicycles. Yeah. Not that that's not given back to the public. I think that's a great thing we're doing. But we don't have what that is costing us to give back. So
we have a budget for the bike program of $10,000. Okay. $10,000, and we've been averaging 138 to 140 bikes a year.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you an idea of the cost there.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's good. But yeah, I a lot of the studies that I see are kind of, in my opinion, not giving the full effect of actually what dollar dump day, what we're getting out of it. It's like we're losing, we're not making money, it's too much of a problem. And I'm just defending it, and it's nothing personal, and you guys have done a great job because I've been there, and I know everybody works their tail off on dollar dump day. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, and thank you very, very much for all you do.
So I get to get on mine.
Mr. Chair, can I get back on Tim's soapbox just a minute?
Absolutely, Tommy.
I totally agree with Tim. I think we get benefits that we can't measure, and maybe my angst is that we need to either not hold landfill's feet to the fire and say you're going to make every penny you spend, and be ready and willing to subsidize some of the programs, knowing that we're not ever going to know how much money is going to be coming in or how much good we're going to do. But I too see a lot of cleaning that's going on, and I don't know how to measure that. I value that. I don't know any other way to replace dollar dump days other than us biting the bullet and saying, landfill, we've held you to the standard for all these years, but neither did we interfere with the revenue piece that you could bring in. And just as a board, be ready to look at this right in the eye and maybe do a little bit differently in how we fund it our own selves to a point. And that, I don't know that we will, or I just think we need to actually think about that in our budgeting. And that was it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. Kenny, thank you for everything you guys are doing in the landfill.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
We've done a lot. In the 3.5 years that we've been sitting here, I think there's a lot. There's changes. They're good changes. The dollar day. I remember when Steve first came and talked to me about the dollar day. The dollar day is like any other new program. It's a good program. Our intentions are well. That's what we intended to do. I don't think if you asked any one of us three that we would have said anything but we're going to lose some revenue on the dollar dump day, because, you're giving that day away. Yeah. You are, and so. But it was good. It cleaned up a lot of areas. A lot of trash got thrown away because of that. It made a lot of neighborhoods look so much better. But like any program, as you go through it, me personally looking at it, I can see where we can improve it. And I'm going to give you an example. I have been hit with, I can't tell you the amount of conversations I've had with people that tell me they don't use dollar dump day any longer. They don't want to go there and sit in those long lines of people and to pay $1 and dump their trash. You showed the numbers up there on the board. There's a ton of vehicles at each one of these landfills. And so over time, there's people that's come to that point. It's like, yeah, it's a good deal. We love basically the free part of it, but we're not going to sit there to do it. I get that. I've personally got a wife that said the same thing. You drive from Young, Arizona with a trailer load of trash to sit in line for over an hour just to get dumped. It gets a little bit of a long day. So I understand that, and I've talked to you, I've talked to other people, how you could look at dollar dump day, like whether it's a voucher system, it's whatever it is, to where we still have the day, but it would give the people the the opportunity to dump at any time of the week that you're open. That's the part of something on this program that people, I think, would absolutely enjoy. You know, you don't have to just plan your Saturday to go to the dump. You could go on a Wednesday. You could go on whatever day it is and dump, something like that. It still gives them the opportunity to take advantage of basically a free dumping to whatever extent that is. The other part of it, and it goes to cost, and I'm be the first to tell you, we're going to lose some money on whatever we do. We're not going. That's revenues we're not going to collect, whatever extent, but that's revenues we're not going to collect, and we intend to do that. But something like that allows you to program your people where the overtime, you don't have that involvement in the overtime. Right. To where you don't have to bring on everybody that you have to work a Saturday to dump X amount of vehicles, you know. And so that actually cuts back a little bit. Now, I will say this, that there's some of your people that won't like that. They wouldn't like that because they like the overtime for that day, too, you know. That's basically the only overtime they get. So they enjoy that overtime. And so I think me personally, I think the Dollar Dump Day has been an awesome program. But I personally see ways that it could be changed to improve it. To still meet the needs of the people and what we intend a dump day to be. I see that. And I see it to where it would be a benefit for the people, you know, that's using it, is what I really see. And as far as like your bike program, that's a home run right there. That's a good deal. You know, Sharon had that going when we came into office. And we stepped into that, I didn't know anything about it or how it worked. That first year, we went to handing out bicycles and hauling them to different places. What a neat program that is. That is a really good deal right there. And so...
Yeah, we just need our inmates back.
Yes, we need DOC back. Absolutely. So maybe one of these days that'll happen. But... So, you know, when you look at that, also I want to thank you guys for helping me and Young right there with our transfer station. That's been awesome. That's been a really good deal. That has given people another avenue, and it's given people a place to go with the heavier items that wouldn't fit there. I do not believe it has impacted our local business right there 1 cent. No, I don't see it.
It hasn't. Talking to Hatch, it hasn't.
Yeah, and so really another place that has really helped is like right now when we're in fire restrictions. Big time. You know, so people, they normally would burn their trash or whatever. They're not doing that right now. And whereas in the past, there was a lot of complaining coming out of Young, Arizona when fire restrictions hit just because of not being able to burn trash barrels. Now it's no big deal. You can sack it up, take it to what doesn't go into the local contractor right there, business, can go to the landfill. You can throw it away there. You know, hatches, they limit the bags that they pick up. So if you got more than that, it's easy just to go on to the dump. It's been a big help. And I really want to thank you guys for all of that.
Okay, thank you. And we're still excited about the composting.
Yeah, I was going to get there as soon as, I was.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, if I can get back here for a second. Yeah, the oh shucks and attaboys. My hat's off to you 1,000,000% for helping me with the composting. And we visited some places, we looked at some places, we worked with it quite a bit. And then grateful through the meetings and stuff, we were able to get with the state and get a contract with the state for some of our compost so we can work forward on creating a composting facility. And I hope that this pilot with the state goes well and is a learning process for us because, you know, we talk about the landfill and the recycling. If we can help use our cardboard and our green waste and help the towns with their sludge to create compost, the savings that's going to be on filling our landfills and a product that can be used, you know, the mines in reclamation all the time. And so just thank you very, very much for helping me see the light with that and working with me on that.
That's great. We want to recycle all we can.
Yeah, because here I'm fighting you with one hand on the dump day and attaboying you on the other for the landfill. So thanks for working with me on both ends, because it's a great deal. But my hat's off to you, and thank you very much for working with
Thank you, Kenny.
Recycle.
James?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Kenny. Appreciate all that you do and all the work that your staff does. And I just want to hope that, or make a suggestion that listening to the board and that of, and I know you do this often, that you are always thinking of how to improve things and make processes better and all of that. To look at the big picture of what we have in Gila County, that we have quite a few areas that are have blight and garbage that's thrown out into the desert and into the forest and other areas, that to look to that big picture of how we can, as a county, by having these landfills, help to encourage us as a county to clean up those areas and what we can do to support that. Not necessarily that we're going to give away the farm, but how we can incorporate all that into us. And I think on the numbers that you said that up north, that the landfill with the recent expansion was to go till 2025. What is the plan beyond that? Well, you don't necessarily need to do it right now, but because we probably need to move on. But to have that, you said 2034, I think, here, so that's a good long time. Beyond 2025, and just what is the long-range plan of what we're looking? Those are great numbers of what you've accomplished. I think we probably want to move on for now. We're an hour into this.
Yeah, let's hear it, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear it. I think this is a good deal too to know. We'll make it work, James.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, County Manager Minlove. We're talking to the Forest Service right now to acquire, through a Townsite Act, 640 acres around Buckhead Mesa landfill. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure we'll own the property by 2025 when we run out of space, but the Forest Service has given us permission to expand onto the forest. We're currently have had a firm come in and do the environmental, the Class 3 archaeological work. We've identified like 7 different archaeological sites where we're going to. We've submitted a plan to them for mitigation. Once they approve that, we can go in, start drilling and determining the next cell. ADQ's already approved us moving because it's in conjunction and adjacent to where we're going. So we do have a plan in place for both landfills. The 2034 here, that's based on if we would have expanded a few years ago. So the longer we can keep the life going at Russell, which we've just found space for at least another year by moving some slopes around, and ADQs give us permission, that just pushes that out even farther. So there are long-range plans in place that we're working towards to ensure that we have landfills in the county for the next number of years.
Hang on, Steve, because I have a question after James does.
Okay. I just want to comment because, like Homer and Dard, they've been working for some time to come up with this long-range plan of what we need to do based on the requests that you're getting as board and how we can address those needs. So they've come up with a plan, long-range plan of being able to address all those needs. So we hope all of our departments are working to that end of what are our long-range needs, what are our long-range plan to be able to get to point Z. And
Exactly. So, Steve, when it comes time to do that Homestead Act with the Forest Service and acquire that property, so the landfill as an enterprise fund will have the funds set aside at that time to do it?
Mr. Chairman, good question. I have no idea. We, when we started negotiating with them a couple of years ago, I told them we couldn't afford 640 acres. I was told by the Forest Service that in Albuquerque, which I guess is southwestern region, at that level they have the ability to waive appraised value if it's for a public benefit and to go ahead and ask for 640 acres. Have no idea what the appraisal, we haven't got there yet to come into, but to have the funds, I doubt if the landfill will have enough funds for the 640 acres.
And so when will that process actually start, do you think?
It's already started, and it is the the number one priority on the Tano right now, from my understanding, talking to the
For
folks
them?
in Phoenix.
For them to transfer land to us
They're
for
just, whatever process they have, it's at the top of their list right now, and they have been working on it for a couple of years.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm just thinking about this, James, from the public land standpoint and the committees that we're on and things like that, and our contacts with the Forest Service and whatnot to maybe ask some questions and just see where they are with that process and just see if there's something they need from us, if, you know.
I certainly would appreciate any kind of help. As I reach out to them every few months, they tell me that it's moving forward and no problems yet. And just so you know, the 640 acres is just not for a landfill. I mean, it will be, Gila County alone it. If we somewhere in the future look to centralize all county services, maybe it's a spot to look for, or turn some of it into industrial areas. It's just we're able to privatize quite a chunk of federal land, so we took advantage to get as much as we can.
Okay, and I'm sure I'm going to come back to that in a minute when we listen to the facilities part of this and buildings and property and stuff too. So, yeah, no, that's good to know. That'll be a big help.
All right.
Thanks,
no other
Steve.
questions, I'll turn it over to Glenn Farnham, General Services.
I think we're good to go.
Thank you.
Thanks. Morning, Glenn.
Morning. Chairman Klein, members of the board, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present a 5-year plan and a brief overview of the condition of the fleet. If we could back up to the title page for a moment. The plan is based on best practices, examples of like agencies in the public sector, and realizing that the condition of our fleet may be unique. We have analyzed the fleet from the perspective of doing right by the taxpayers and constituents. Next slide, please. The Public Works General Services Division staff have prepared an several Excel spreadsheets organized mainly by funding sources and departments for those that are unique in their utilization of Gila County motor vehicles to develop a vehicle replacement plan. These spreadsheets include data for fleet and assigned vehicles, sheriff patrol vehicles, sheriff non-patrol vehicles, sheriff grant funded, and grant funded by others, as well as HERF and landfill groups. Data collection. Data collected for this exercise has been collected and imported from the current Agile Fleet Management Software program, as well as the historic data from the previous CFA Fleet Management Program. We've recently integrated that into Agile Fleet. They were instrumental in helping us to capture that data and import it into the current program. Data has been organized to provide vital statistics to represent each vehicle within the fleet, and data has been restricted to automobiles and light trucks only in this example of a vehicle replacement plan. These groups are divided into the main groups of General Fund, HERF Fund, and Enterprise Fund. The General Fund has been divided further by separating the Sheriff's Office Patrol Group and Sheriff's Office Non-Patrol Groups from the remainder of the fleet group. And as utilization of these vehicles is, their maintenance needs and requirements are unique and require different consideration. Staff has determined recommendations of vehicle replacement should be based on 3 main factors. Next slide, please. Those would be age. We're looking at 10 years replacement goal. Maintenance life cost. That would be 100% of the cost of today's price to replace that vehicle has been spent on maintenance as one of the criteria. And then mileage. We're looking at a target mileage of 200,000 miles.
So Glenn, can I ask you a question right now before I
Sure.
lose it?
Yeah.
So on the 100% of purchase cost, how often does that ever happen?
We'll get to that, but it does happen.
It does?
Yeah, you
Okay.
bet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not top of the list right now in the fleet, but you'll see it popping up through here,
Good, thanks.
through this presentation. Utilization, that being the amount of mileage we accrue on vehicles, there is gross underutilization, and that's another factor, that being those vehicles that are driven less than 5,000 miles per year. And that's something we need to look at. Let me see where we're at here. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll take a look at the data. Now, this data, this is an example of one of the spreadsheets, the general fund and motor pool vehicles. Now, this sampling is actually the worst of the group as far as ones that should be replaced in the near future. The data is current as of March 31st of this year. This spreadsheet sample, Agile Fleet provides data and spreadsheets, and a spreadsheet is used to, let me correct myself. Agile Fleet provides the data, and a spreadsheet is built, is used to rank order this data based on those three criteria: age, mileage, and maintenance. This is a snapshot of it. If you look on the very right column under the yellow box, that's the rank ordering. It's not clear because of the size of it. Yes, thank you. And we could see the very bottom row, the last row, one of the examples, its value is 36.7 on the scale. And that'd be a vehicle, it's a 1992, it's 28 years of age. The first group of blue boxes across that top row, age and years, those red boxes, that column is populated by the age of vehicles in years and tenths of years. And those vehicles, once they get to 15 years, they get flagged by that red color. So the box is shadowed in red. The average miles is that next column to the right. That shows the average mileage per year. That bottom one, the last entry again, shows a underutilized vehicle. That column will, that specific area will populate with a red shadow when it's underutilized, under 5,000 miles per year. And then the next column is maintenance life, cost per date, cost per year value. That top one is populated or shaded in red. That is one that's reading 117% of the cost of life. There's an example right there, right? Okay. Any questions on that? The lower the value on that right, very far right column, presents the highest value as far as when you should replace it. Lower means replace sooner. And then the combination of those three factors contribute to that. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's look at those maintenance costs. Motor pool assigned vehicles total group in this sampling is 111 vehicles. These are the assigned and motor pool groups in the general fund loop grouped together. You'll see on that bar graph that 97 of those vehicles are in the 0 to 50 percentile. They've achieved that much in maintenance costs so far throughout their life. That being that their replacement value is now they've accrued that half of their replacement value in maintenance costs. So the total annual average maintenance cost across the board is $1,376. The maintenance life cost data, most of the vehicles, 97 of these have required maintenance costs that are 50% or less than the cost to replace. And vehicles that are between 50 and 100%, that's 28 of the vehicles, and there's one in this group that has achieved 100% or more.
So Glenn, on your total annual maintenance costs, I see in the bottom where it includes parts, labor, and fluids. It doesn't take into fuel, of course, but what about tires?
That's parts.
Okay, that's
Tires
under
are
parts.
included, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions there? Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Motor pool and assigned vehicles, mileage. Let's take a look at mileage. Total vehicles, again, 111. The average mileage through this group is 89,074 miles. And then you can see by the bar graph, vehicles in the 0 to 50,000 mile group is 21. Vehicles from 50,001 miles to 100,000 miles is 48. Vehicles with 101,000 miles to 200,000 miles is 41. And vehicles over 200,000 miles is 1 in this group. Next slide, please. Underutilization, average miles over the life of all 111 vehicles, again, is 12,807. Gross underutilization, that being 5,000 miles or less per year. 16 of the vehicles in the group have less than, in the group of underutilized vehicles, have less than 5,000 miles. 2 are new vehicles that, as of the last collection date of March 31st, they didn't have enough miles on them, so they show as underutilized. 5 are special purpose, and 9 possibly should be considered for consolidation into the motor pool in an effort to try to increase utilization by sharing through the departments. And then maybe after each year, we would take a look at the group and maybe start eliminating vehicles. If we don't, the data shows that we're not using vehicles to the extent that we should. So there's something that should be done about that. And this is a way of considering those vehicles and maybe weeding out those that we don't need and start using a better chunk of what we do have. Next slide, please.
Probably like a carpool would be the way to do
Exactly. It's a motor pool, yeah, car
that.
pool.
Motor pool to where they get more use because they're not under like one department or one driver.
Yeah, at someone's disposal
Yeah.
for if and when they need it.
Okay.
Motor pool and assigned vehicles age. The average age of the fleet right now is 10 and a half years. Vehicles greater than 10 years, we have 62 of this group that are in excess of 10 years of age. Vehicles in excess of 15 years of age, there's 22. Vehicles greater than 20 years of age, there's 6. Cost to implement a 10-year plan, which is what we're looking at today, on an ongoing basis, we're looking at $428,874 per year to maintain just this group of vehicles.
So if we have underutilized vehicles and we trim that down a little bit, that cost should come down also, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Next slide, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
could I add something? To that? We've got about over 200 vehicles between the sheriff's office and the motor pool that Glenn is referring to. So if we take $500,000 just for the motor pool, and really that number that we should be investing in vehicles is more like $1 million, somewhere between 20 and 25 vehicles per year, including the sheriff's office and the motor pool. So that just from the general fund perspective, about $1 million should be our investment each year to be able to stay current just where we're at. So wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thanks for pointing it out, James. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
A little
Go ahead,
scary.
Glenn.
A little scary?
Well, let's get in there.
Okay. All right, so what we have here is current vehicle condition. You can see the criteria we're looking at is age, maintenance, life, cost, and mileage. So the replacement level we're looking at today on this plan is 10 years, 100% of purchase cost, and 200,000 miles as goals. Number of vehicles, if we were to look at those values and put it together for this year, we're looking at 62 vehicles that fall into the 10-year replacement category. One that meets the maintenance life cost and one that meets the mileage. So the proposal for 2021, budget bearing with the COVID-19 and all, we're not sure where we're at, right? Our proposal would be to start with 5 vehicles at a cost of $205,800. All of these vehicles would exceed 20 years of age, 200,000 miles, and 100% of replacement cost based on expended maintenance.
So in those 5 vehicles there, Glenn, are any of those belong to the sheriff's department?
No, we haven't gotten to that group yet.
Okay. All right.
Where do we go from here? Start to accrue funding for future vehicle replacement. Next slide, please. This little chart here gives you an idea as to how we're proposing to fund for our vehicles going forward. The departments would budget for these costs. These are actual numbers based on what we've spent for these vehicles historically and currently up through current date, March 31st. So if you look at the different type or class of vehicle, you can see what the maintenance per year is, what the average cost of that vehicle would be to replace it, not what it cost when we bought it, but what we would spend this year to replace that type of class of vehicle. And then the red row there, that would be the total annual assigned cost, what we'd like to assign as a cost for these departments and divisions for these type classes of vehicles. The fuel cost, that would be in addition to, and then the blue total annual cost would be our calculation as to what the annual cost would be for each one of those type class of vehicles with fuel.
Okay, so then, James, on this, your department heads and their vehicles that they have in that department are programming those dollars into what they're getting every year towards the replacement of those vehicles, right?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it was a little bit spotty for this fiscal year, 2020. Some of them were that way, some were not. Our intent is going forward that those numbers are programmed into the budgets, that's what they're putting into the replacement fund going forward. So yes.
Okay, and so that's going to hold true for all the other electeds and parts of the county too. They'll use those numbers to program into their.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, James. Go ahead, Glenn.
Okay, there is an exception to that being the motor pool vehicles. That's the bottom row there, daily cost motor pool, those are the fees we charge per vehicle for daily cost for each type class of vehicle, and those are all available within the motor pool for utilization. Currently, the motor pool isn't very large, but if we were able to gather some of those vehicles that are underutilized into the motor pool, that pool will grow, utilization should increase. We'll keep an eye on that annually and keep working with it, at least annually. These annual costs are based on a 12,000 mile projected usage or goal per vehicle and on the 10-year plan.
Okay.
And the current fuel guesstimate of $2.50 per gallon. I think it's a little lower than that right now, but it's starting to turn back up again, as we're seeing from historic lows currently. Next slide, please. Here we'll take a look at Sheriff Patrol and Sheriff non-patrol vehicles. In the Sheriff Patrol group, there are 60 vehicles. Of those 60 vehicles, there are 27 of those, almost 50%, that are older than 10 years. And of that group, there's 13 vehicles that are older than 15 years. The Sheriff's non-patrol, it's in a little better condition. It's mostly admin or leadership vehicles. That group, there's 6 vehicles older than 10 years and 2 vehicles older than 15 years. Next slide, please. Maintenance life cost to date, Sheriff Patrol. We're looking at 27 of this group that they've achieved 50% of their replacement value. Now, understand that the replacement value on patrol vehicles is much greater than fleet and motor pool vehicles because of the added equipment,
Sure.
which is all combined together. They're about $60,000 a unit for a patrol vehicle.
For a total package.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then even split there, 51 to 100%, another 27 vehicles in that group. And then the remaining 101 to 150% of replacement cost, there's six remaining vehicles that we've spent more than the replacement value of.
Okay.
So we've spent more than 100% of what it cost to replace it, those 6 vehicles. On the I'm sorry.
Let me interrupt you just a minute, Glenn. So like on those 6 vehicles, you know, when you get, they become a money pit at that point in time.
Yes, sir.
So are those elevated to the top for replacement?
You bet.
Okay, good.
Same spreadsheet, different group of vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Are those usually auctioned or traded in?
They're usually auctioned. We haven't been trading in. We haven't done that program. I don't think we can get as much value for them as trade-in value at a dealer as we would auctioning them. Sure. We seem to actually do pretty good at the auction.
Yeah.
If they're not totaled or, you know. And
they're operable.
Yeah. And it's surprising, even if we tell folks, different subject, but if we tell folks that it's got a bad transmission or a bad engine, that, you know, if it runs, they can hear it, they seem good with it, and they'll bid it up. But it's surprising sometimes.
Yeah.
Sheriff's non-patrol, there's 19 vehicles in that group that are in the 0 to 50 percentile range, maintenance cost towards replacement. And then 2 vehicles that are in the 51 to 100%, with 0 exceeding maintenance cost to life replacement value. Next slide, please. Sheriff's Patrol again. Now we're looking at mileage. In this group, there are more than, there are 12 vehicles with more than 200,000 miles accrued, and 2 vehicles with more than 250,000 miles accrued. And then you can see the breakdown between 0 to 50, 50 to 100, et cetera, on out to 250 to 300,000 miles.
So, Glenn, I got a question on this. When you go back to the 10 years, the amount of maintenance that's going into these vehicles and so forth, these vehicles like the sheriff has here that's 200,000 miles, it's hard for me to imagine that we're not getting to that maintenance cost on them to where they're starting to really
Sure. Yeah,
turn the corner.
and we are, but we've never had a plan in the past. So that's what we're trying to achieve here, is looking at data and giving you folks justification and
Sure.
understanding as to where we're at.
Oh, yeah, and I totally
and
appreciate it.
What we
Yeah.
need to do.
Sure.
And
Mr.
then-
Chairman,
Yeah.
based on my experience, for these high usage vehicles, hard mile vehicles, that it's probably more like, rather than 200,000, that we should be shooting for about 150,000 miles to be looking at replacing these. And you can see that we've got 12 of them that are over 200 already. So there's a lot of vehicles out there that are high maintenance and costing lots of money in that area for high usage, high hard miles in the Sheriff's Patrol.
I totally agree, James. And the other thing about that is when you start pushing those kind of miles, and especially with our deputies and stuff that are running at higher rates of speed and on and on and on, it's a safety factor too. I have faith in our shops for covering everything, but still there's unknowns in those vehicles.
Well, and I was going to bring that up. We do the best we can with what we have, and we do not release a vehicle out onto the road that is unsafe for the officers or the public. They're red tagged if that's the case until we can make them right. But remember, a lot of these vehicles are older, and it's older technology. It's not as safe technology in these vehicles, these older vehicles, as the current vehicles are. So that's another way of looking at it. Next slide, please. Or I'm sorry, we're already there. So of this group of sheriff vehicles, the patrol vehicles, this little snapshot of a spreadsheet, it shows the top 24. It's different colors, but populated, the shading in the same manner. You've got the last mileage, and then age and years and maintenance life cost to date. And you can see how populated it is. That first blue column is age and years. All but 2 of those boxes are shaded, based on the age of these vehicles. And then maintenance life cost to date, that last column there, those green shaded areas, boxes, those are vehicles that have exceeded that 100 percentile replacement cost. So there's 27 vehicles older than 10 years, 13 vehicles older than 15, 6 vehicles that we've spent more than 100% of replacement cost for that vehicle, and 12 vehicles that exceed 200,000 miles. So what are the next steps? We rank order the patrol vehicles based on these parameters, and we visit with the sheriff's office and make decisions based on budget considerations. The recommendation here again, budget bearing or budget allowing, would be 5 patrol vehicles for this fiscal year at a cost of $340,000. That would be vehicles in excess of 200,000 miles and 100% of maintenance cost, what we've been talking about, replacement cost. Any questions there? I have more numbers if you'd like them.
The only question I'm going to have is on dollars, James.
Yes, sir. Next,
No, go ahead.
next
We'll
slide,
talk
please.
about that.
Next slide, please. Thank you. I'm sorry, we skipped ahead. There we go. So this, another look at the next group of sheriff vehicles, these being non-patrol. There's, in this sampling, there's 21 vehicles. In this sampling here, it's 24, top 14. We look at those, and there again, as we said earlier, they're a little better numbers than the patrol vehicles. We have 6 vehicles older than 10 years, 2 vehicles older than 15, 0 vehicles that we've spent more on maintenance than replacement cost, and 2 vehicles that exceed 200,000 miles in this area. There again, how do we deal with this group of vehicles? We rank order the non-patrol vehicles based on age, maintenance, and mileage. We visit with the sheriff's office and make decisions based on budget considerations. The non-patrol fleet is in relatively good condition. 2 vehicles are underutilized. Maybe that's something they can look at to consolidate their numbers down and make better use of their resources. And then the recommendation, there is no recommendation for replacement of this group of vehicles this year. And then accrue funding for future purchases.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave the sheriff's office, we need to add to this figure of a number of 2 to 5 vehicles that essentially are totaled. Because of the high, fast mileage and stuff, even just the one in Payson that got rear-ended when he was stopped for an event, an incident. So there's 2 to 5 on top of those ones that may be a brand new vehicle, 6 months old, and gets rear-ended or whatever it is, and we've got to replace it. We get some money back from insurance, but it may be only half of what the cost was originally that we will get back through insurance on those vehicles. So that is an added cost that we have, is the accidents that we have in the sheriff's office. Not by any fault of their own, but that's right. Just what happens.
So James, from the financial standpoint, the sheriff budgets all the dollars for his vehicles in his budget, right? Or no?
No, sir.
It comes out of our general fund.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I've made a general agreement with the sheriff's office that we will, from the general fund, if they go out and get grant funding, and if they are that industrious and be able to go and find dollars to invest in vehicles, that we will, from the general fund, match that dollar for dollar. And that's as an incentive to go out and find grants, because this is a lot of money, and we need the grants for public safety to be able to fund all of these. So that's for this year. A little bit over $500,000. We're able to get 4 sheriff's vehicles and about 4 vehicles for the general motor pool. So about 8 vehicles altogether. A little bit over $500,000. Split 4 and 4 for each type.
Okay, that's something we can visit more on in the future and go from there and see.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, I will add that based on Glenn and his analysis, working with Homer, that we will be able to recoup those costs, put them back into what we call an internal service fund, like an enterprise fund, like the landfill, but that it should be paying for itself. So we'll channel those dollars that Glenn had mentioned, channel those into the internal service fund for fleet, and then be able to have dollars that are available to replace. So that'll be a benefit in the future.
Sure, I think that would be, as long as we can keep our fingers out of that pot, and make sure that happens.
I will say that just before I came, that they had a very nice balance in this, and due to budget constraints, I think took about $2 million from the fleet fund and put it into the general fund. So it just defeats the whole purpose, and I don't operate that way. So
Yeah. I get that, James. And then the unexpected wrecks and stuff like that. That's something we just deal with.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome. So in comparison, relatively speaking, currently we're on about a 20-year cycle for vehicles, as you can see by this data.
And we want to get it down to 10.
We'd like to, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good doable goal.
So with that in mind, if we're setting like somewhere around a 20-year cycle right now, we pull it down to 10, it's going to cost us a few bucks to do that initially. But as we get into that cycle and that change, hopefully in the years to come, that would balance back out.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, and that coupled with more better utilization of vehicles.
Yes.
If everybody looks inside and at their departments and divisions, it really takes a close look at planning and scheduling and using motor pool vehicles when they can, as opposed to assigned vehicles. I think it would be more cost effective. I think we're looking at 252 days a year that are available, barring holidays and weekends, for motor pool vehicle use. There's a lot of time that the vehicles are just sitting unused in those 252 days that are wasted. And that's where this underutilization, gross underutilization is coming from.
The one thing, maybe this is a place to say this since we're talking about utilization, is that's another topic I get hit with a lot. Just how many vehicles does the county own? Because we see county vehicles everywhere. Why do you guys need so many vehicles? On and on and on. I don't know if Tim gets those questions or not, but I certainly have. And so this is a good thing to talk about. And when it comes to the utilization and what needs to be out there and what doesn't. So I want to thank you guys for doing this.
Mr. Chairman, we had the discussion about the benefit of Agile Fleet. We had that discussion about that, and Glenn is utilizing that software now, and it costs some dollars, but with this information, we can be able to make wise, informed decisions and make the best use of our dollars. So
Sure.
I think I appreciate the immense investment in
Absolutely.
the fleet, Agile Fleet, and Glenn now using that information so we can go forward and get things current, only having the vehicles that we utilize or that we need and that we use the most.
Yeah. Go ahead, Glenn.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so these two groups we've thrown together on this slide, HERF and Enterprise Fund, landfill. Obviously, they're funded differently than general fund. So we're looking at 50 HERF vehicles. Vehicles exceeding 15 years of age, there's 17. Vehicles exceeding 200,000 miles, there's 2 in the HERF group. And then vehicles exceeding maintenance dollars versus replacement cost, there's 16. Underutilized vehicles in this group, there's 6. Those tend to be, for that group, specialty or seasonal type vehicles, small dump trucks, flatbeds, and one inmate transport vehicle. It's actually a van for brush, roadside clearing, things of that nature. In the land, I'm sorry.
So on this 50 under HERF, that doesn't include our dump trucks and transports.
Once again, these are automobiles and light trucks
Gotcha.
that we're looking at today
Okay.
only. And then landfill, there's 8 vehicles. One vehicle exceeds 15 years. There's no vehicles that exceed 200,000 miles or maintenance cost of replacement. Landfill vehicles, for the most part, they do leave the landfill, but not very often. Supervisory pickups or going to the maintenance shop, or they don't accrue a lot of mileage, but they do accrue some wear and tear and use within that facility. And then there's one underutilized vehicle in that group, that being less than 5,000 miles per year. The recommendations for these groups, HERF, we would use the Agile Fleet data and spreadsheets to make informed decisions, provide that information to those departments, and work with them to help and guide them on their decision making as necessary. we would recommend replacing vehicles over 20 years of age in the HERF group, and then landfill replace one 18-year-old vehicle this year, based on the data. Next slide, please. Next steps, use this fleet data to help determine replacement priority. Continuously examine the validity of the replacement parameters. On those spreadsheets, those numbers aren't hard and fast. We can change those numbers 10, 12, 15 years, 200,000 miles, more, less, as Mr. Mendelov specified or suggested earlier, maybe 150,000 per sheriff's office patrol units. They're easy to change and get different results. Share the data and the recommendations with the appropriate departments. Work together to achieve the same goal. And then accrue funding at the appropriate level in order to implement the most cost-effective and safe vehicle replacement policy. Questions?
Tommy, do you have any questions for Glenn or comments?
Mr. Chair, I've got some comments probably. Glenn, I really appreciate you doing what I think of as taking an amazing amount of disparate information and getting your arms around it in a way that lets me understand what's going on. It was an area that needed a good, clear look at it. It lets us also make decisions like, and let somebody else make decisions like, do we treat, is it 200,000, whatever, adequate for everybody, or do we do a separate situation for deputy vehicles versus Tommy trotting around in vehicles? It lets us get a real good, clear look as to what's costing us, where and why and how, and what to do about it. One of the things that I really value is the fact that we have a fleet and that we are able to provide that service to our employees. I was going to tell Woody, I used to get a lot of comments about all the vehicles and all the, but as we inform folks, and it's just like anything else, as they understand what we're doing, as they're able to understand, as they're able to go find the information and see where we're using this, as we inform them and educate them, the questions go way down. Generally, the questions I get now are from new folks in the area, not the ones that have been here a while and actually pay attention. But I really want to thank you, Glenn, for getting this to this stage of the game. I know you're not finished, and I so appreciate the decisions it's going to help everybody make as we go on into the future with this piece of the puzzle. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Supervisor Martin.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, thanks for the data. It's hard to kind of wrap your head around that many vehicles and mileage and things. And I know we're sitting here a lot of times approving a lot of these new vehicles, and it's like, wow, we're spending a lot of money in vehicles. But the thing of it is with the data, we're not spending enough money on vehicles because we've got an awful lot of aged, old, 200,000 mile vehicles that we're operating that, we're trying to get better on. And so, the whole time I've been thinking that, man, we're spending an awful lot of money on new vehicles. And I hear from people saying, well, I see a lot of new sheriff's vehicles getting stickers on them. It's like, well, yeah, but you don't see the sheriff's vehicles, but with this data, the sheriff's vehicles with 250,000 miles on them that are still in service. So the new ones that you see that you're complaining about, you're not seeing the full picture because we have a lot of them that still need to be replaced in order to give the people the service that they're requiring from the sheriff's office. So yeah, it kind of puts all that into perspective and helps me get a better picture of it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Glenn, thanks for putting this all together. This is good. I think this does bring up something, James, that, looking ahead, this is something that probably needs to be dove into deeper, and really looked at really hard, and see what we can do, where we can go, and how we can do that. See about the ones that we don't need, and so forth. Or maybe there's pickups on here that instead of 3/4 tons, they should be 1/2 tons, stuff of that nature. But this is a really good start. This sets us up to do that, and so I want to thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's a tool.
Absolutely, it's a good one. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I want to express appreciation to Glenn and Homer. They've worked in tandem to put all this information together and have spent quite a bit of time of accumulating it. Now they have it together, and we can finally make decisions. I know prior to Glenn, the policy of the fleet, the shop, was to hide vehicles around town so that nobody knew anything. And you get the comments from people that have been here in the county for a while, and they have seen that. We are working strongly to correct that we have vehicles, the right number of vehicles that we use, and that they are safe for our employees, for our sheriff's deputies, that they're not likely to get stranded going from here to Payson or wherever it might be, that they can be safe for our employees. But that is our goal, and we finally, with these two gentlemen, have some information that we can make informed decisions. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. Thanks again.
Thank you.
So, Steve, did you have any more for us?
Certainly, if you have time.
Keep going.
I will speak to some upcoming projects, but first, if we could put up the HERF 5-year projection slide. We've this was created prior to COVID-19, when HERF revenue was on an increase, and we were planning the next 5 years, and we have projects budgeted, some under construction. Since we've been hit with this COVID-19, we've started reducing HERF revenues out through the future based on projections, 10%, 5%, type of that. If you can look at the bottom line, you will see that going back to FY 18-19, the amount of money we were carrying forward each year, where we had quite a surplus. And this budget is all M&O, salaries, everything on the HERFs that we do that's HERF related. As you can see, as we get out into 22, 23, we're starting to carry over less than $1 million. We get to 24, 25, and we're looking at 44,000 as a carryover, which things are going to get real lean. Just does it, what it possibly means, some of these projects get pushed back, some all don't get done. It's too many unknowns right now to say we're going to do these and they're set in stone for the next 5 years, because we don't know what our funding's going to be like. But with that said, I do have some projects to share with you. And these are, some are ongoing, some are planned, some are getting ready to start. We'll start with the current year. This is leveraging funds from ADOT. It's off Colcord Road, right where the pavement ends. It's a replace a bridge. It's actually been awarded to Hayden Building Corporation. Expect the work to begin later this summer and then really ramp up about September, October. It's being built under an accelerated bridge schedule where it's 24 hours, 48 hours, I believe. They build most of it off-site, bring it in, and set it in place, just because the access is so limited in the area. And we do have an easement from the landowner in the area to get light vehicles around and stuff, but heavy vehicles won't be able to make it around. We're working with fire departments, sheriffs and stuff, so they know what to expect and when to expect it. Next slide. Gibson Ranch Road, just south of Payson. This is one that we're working on. The plan was to design it in-house I hope that's still the plan. Just depends if we have an engineer in place or the engineer we do have now, what his plate is. Otherwise, we may go out, but it's scheduled for next year. Did I miss one? I did. Gila Road. This is probably a third phase of a project in there. We're looking to start designing on it later this winter and get it out to bid in spring of 2022.
How many miles?
I couldn't tell you right about a little over a mile. It gets down to the bottom on the other side to where we get back into the good pavement. But it seems like it was 1.2, or I'll get you the exact mileage on it. Mesa Dell is outside of Payson. This is a third phase of a three-phase project. It's being designed right now. We expect to put it out this fall for construction. Rim Trail Bridge. It's an ugly bridge in a very pretty location. Up under the rim in the Rim Trail subdivision, a one-lane bridge comes down a steep hill and around a corner. A motor grader can just fit across it. If they take it across, there's a low water crossing on the other end, so there are other ways in and out. Plans were just complete. We a couple of months ago, you guys accepted drainage easements from the 4 property owners on each corner to come in and improve the drainage. We're looking to go to work next spring of 2021. Put this out for bid.
Is it going to be a 2-lane bridge?
No, it's still going to be
a one lane, just
one
a little
lane,
wider. One lane.
Yes, a little wider and a little safer. I believe this is a railroad flat car sitting on some rocks. This is the main road into Roosevelt Resort, Stagecoach Trail. Major drainage issues along this road. Anytime it rains, water ponds all the way through. This has a lot of moving parts. We're working with landowners to acquire drainage easements at the end of the project to get the water out to Pinto Creek. We've purchased a piece of property at the end of this road to help drain the right-of-way through there. We've looking at an inverted crown, a concrete crown in the middle of the carry the water down the middle of the road in a concrete channel. And we're looking to it's ongoing right now. Deer Creek Village, this is a chip seal project that is going on today. Started yesterday and it should wind up today. We're doing it in-house. Cactus Asphalt is supplying the oil in the boot truck.
Steve, can I hold it for a second? I've got a green light flashing here and I've heard beeping. I don't know if Supervisor Martin is still on or not.
Are you with us, Tommy? Quit blinking.
Yes, you should still be on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine, because I heard some beeping and I saw a flashing light, so I wasn't sure.
Kind of like that, it went away.
And now it's not even green anymore, so I don't know.
Let me call her back. That might have been her calling back in.
Thank you, Dave. You guys dropped me and I couldn't get anybody's attention. I probably need a phone number that I can call you when that happens.
Alrighty.
I tried to call everything on this number and it wouldn't ring. So,
We
do I
got you.
call you? Who do I call when this happens again here in a minute?
Who's got a cell
see the
phone on?
monitor.
You can call Steve.
I'll do it. I just, it wouldn't call back in.
So, Steve, on this one, our guys are doing the work, and Cactus is just supplying the oil?
Cactus is supplying the oil and the boot truck. We're laying the chips and spreading the chips and hauling the chips.
Steve, would you back up to the Roosevelt Resort, Stagecoach Trails? We're not there. That's where I lost you.
Certainly. Stagecoach Trail is the main road into Roosevelt Resort. It's has ponding and flooding issues anytime it rains. We're looking to improve drainage along the road, put in a inverted crown in the road with a concrete ditch that'll carry the water through. We've purchased property at the end of the road, and we're working with residents to acquire additional drainage easements to get the water out to Pinnacle Creek. And a lot of work has already went on with this, but we're looking to continue it.
Thank you.
Deer Creek Village, like I said, we started chipping in there yesterday, and we should be done in there today.
So for 50,000, how far is that going on this one, Steve?
Everything that's highlighted on the left in the blue is what we're chipping in there, the complete subdivision.
Oh, okay. Good. Good deal.
And the cost, I believe, are what cost of the material and the material costs and the boot truck and that type of stuff.
Okay.
Kellner Canyon Road, we're moving down here. These aren't quite in order as the schedule, but from Deer Creek we moved to Tonto Basin for 2 roads in Tonto Basin to wrap up this week. Next week we move down to the Globe area, and Kellner Canyon Road is next week. We're also doing that in-house, and again, Cactus Asphalt supplying the oil, and our crews are hauling the chips and laying the chips. Old State Route 188 there, that's tomorrow or the next day as they move into to Tonto Basin. I don't remember if Walnut Springs is tomorrow and then Old 188 or vice versa. But work is being done in-house, and Cactus supplying the oil and the boot truck. 6-Shooter Canyon Road, we're putting a polymer modified chip seal on that. It's what the city's using around here that turns it real black. It's a rubber coated chip that goes down hot. It lasts a lot longer, has a lot better wearing surface. This is one of the higher volume roads in the area, and Cactus will do all of the work on that. It'll be like what you see them doing around here and the work that was done around Roosevelt last year, I believe. And Walnut Springs in the Tonto Basin area, chipping the roads in there. We're doing that in-house again with Cactus supporting the oil and the boot truck.
So Steve, when we're doing it in-house, are you having to consolidate the crews in order to pull these projects off?
This right now we're using the Tonto Basin and the Globe crew.
Okay.
Next one that comes up on the radar, Cemetery Road. It's off of 87 in Pine. Probably half a dozen homes or more on it. It goes to the local cemetery. County either has an easement or owns the property all the way up. The pavement's in terrible condition. There's a low water crossing. We have it planned for next year. What we're going to do, we're still discussing whether we mill the existing pavement, lay new, take it all out, start over. There's still discussions on what it'll come back, but we're looking to come back with a paved road into the cemetery. Golden Hill Sidewalk, this is through ADOT. We've leveraged money through ADOT with local contributions. It kind of went on hiatus for a while with some different issues. It's back. ADOT's moving it forward, and we're working on final plans, environmental clearances, getting easements in place, that type of stuff, and we're looking to start it next 2021 in the summer. Golden Main Street Sidewalk. This project was actually, it's again with ADOT. ADOT bids it, administers it. They put it out for bid and run into a lot of utilities that were missed during design. They stopped the contractor. There was a lawsuit. ADOT settled that a year ago. Now it's moving back forward, and we expect it to bid in conjunction with the Golden Hill Sidewalk, and where they're run together. Waldeman Road is just south of Globe. It's a road that's been on the radar for a number of years, and for one reason or another, it just kind of gets pushed back and stuff. But we are looking to come in and do some pavement improvement on it late next year. And this is what we've identified it is just north of 87 in Pine. The map shows everything in blue. That's what we're looking to chip seal in the Pine area next year, and that work would be done in-house. And then also south of 87, everything in blue looking to chip seal. The following year, we moved to Strawberry, and we've used Fossil Creek to divide Strawberry. Everything you see there north of Fossil Creek, we're looking to go in the summer of 2022. And south of Strawberry, summer of 2022 also. And again, these will all be in-house projects. 2023, Klein Boulevard Ewing Trail in the Tonto Basin. We're looking to come in and do a chip seal over the complete road in the area, and it will be an in-house chip seal project. This is something new to us. These funds came from the state, and we call them HSIP, Highway Safety Improvement Program. We actually had a traffic consultant apply on our behalf for us. And you can see we're going to get over $4.5 million for this project. It doesn't go till FY24, but what it will do is start at 260 on the control road. They will put centerline and edgeline rumble strips in. Once we get to the dirt, the plan is to pave the next 1.75 miles of the road, 24 foot wide, with centerline and edgeline rumble strips. And this is all safety related due to deaths that have occurred on the road. And we do have I believe it's $200,000 match that will tie to this project. But $200,000 is pretty cheap for almost 2 miles of new paved road. And this is the Houston Mesa Road. We're looking to add 5 foot wide paved shoulders from 87 out to, it's around Freedom Acres. I believe it's about 5 miles. Same type of project. It's an HSIP that the state has ponied up most of the money, and it will go at the same time, which will allow this road. We've had a lot of requests for paved shoulders, bike lanes, things like that, and it will allow for that all the way out. That's it, and be happy to answer any questions you have.
Tommy, you have any questions or comments for Steve?
Mr. Chair, I appreciate taking a look out there for 5 years and seeing what we're getting ready to do. There's not a project on there that I don't think we need to do, and I wish we could do them all at once. I'm particularly interested, of course, in the control road. I would like to ultimately be able to use ADOT's help to at least pave through the Houston Mesa Road and turn that into a fundamentally different conversation over time. We have been doing that, but the use on it is just ridiculous. And right now, to go look at it during this, whatever we're doing with the state, is amazing how much traffic we've got on that road. But, Mr. Chair, Steve, I so appreciate you all taking a look out there and laying these out projects that we can look at and understand that. I'm particularly interested in the Cemetery Road, as you know. There's not many people on there, but there's a lot of usage because it is a cemetery road. And that's been a problem for years. But anyhow, Mr. Chair, thanks, Steve, and thanks your bunch.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, Steve, I just, looking at these 5-year plan, appreciate all you're doing and have done. I appreciate your willingness to work in-house. I think that's going to help us save some funds, perhaps, to help us create better projects and maybe a few more projects. And so thank you very much for that, and the crews that are out there doing that today, because I'm sure it's hot and miserable, but I think in-house is good if we have the manpower and help us to continue the projects. So thank you very much.
Certainly, and I'll pass the things on to the crew. And unfortunately, part of chip seal is when it's hot and miserable out is chip seal season. So
It is, but yeah, thank you and them very, very much.
Same too, Steve. I agree with Tommy in the sense that it would be really nice if we just got on them and did them. And you know what you said earlier about money and where we're at today, it's going to have a big influence on what we're going to be doing next year. I almost sure of that, you know. So time will tell there. But I'm really glad we're getting these projects back on the board and try and catch up with a lot of this stuff that needs to be done. The one thing that I want to ask is, like on capital projects, what about our resurfacing projects, like for just gravel, granite, stuff like that? Are we looking at anything like that? I know we're doing some work in Young, pushing material and stuff like that, but is there other roads out there that we're going to be looking in resurfacing just with granite-based type material?
Well, yeah, if we have the material, we certainly will resurface them, but those are more just everyday maintenance that they, you know, if they need resurfacing, they'll put them down and stuff. We haven't turned it into to big projects where we're either buying material or trucking material in or trying to do big areas at once. Kind of leave that up to the
Locals?
to the foremans and to Brent to decide, you know, we need to maintain or resurface this stretch of road and work that as they can.
Good. So go ahead, James. You have something to say? No? You're good?
I do have something, but,
Oh, go ahead.
Steve, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just wanted to know about if any federal grants, federal projects that we're applying for, that we're working to get federal money to support in the county.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Menilov, good point, and I apologize for forgetting about that. We're applying for a build grant for the Tonto Bridge. We're prepared to submit this this Friday. Applications are due Monday. We want to submit Friday in case there's any kind of last-minute problems. We don't want to get held up that way, so we are applying for that. Also, the Federal Highway Administration has a grant opportunity out. It's called the FLAP Program, Federal Land Access Program. It provides roads that provide access to federal lands. We're submitting submitting at the end of the day today for 512 road to extend paving about 2.5 miles. It will on the south end where it stops now up to basically the Nail Ranch intersection. I think it's Forest Road 100 to get at least to the top of the hill. And that will get submitted today.
Well, I appreciate that too, Steve, but I'd appreciate more if we could give the 512 road to the state.
I don't disagree, and the only way we can do that is to start lobbying the State Transportation Board to look at taking it over or taking it in. Where I go with that, if they want to call the Apache Trail a state highway, why not the road out of Young?
It fits. It even fits more so because of the way it dead ends. So, you know, and looking at that is a fact. I mean, it's not only lobbying the board, but also there's got to be some fixes on that road that happened in the last contract. So, James, you got something?
Yeah, you mean the 288 section of that?
The 288 ends in the north side of Young,
Right.
and it does not connect. It's like the last highway in Arizona that comes to a dead end.
Right.
State highway.
Right.
And so I have looked at this. I've talked to Steve about it too. And I think we are at a point in time where we really do need to lean out there and push on them to take that and extend it onto 260.
For the state to take over the entire length of that?
Yep.
Okay.
Certainly to provide connectivity between two state highways instead of just saying we're going to stop at this line on the ground.
Right. So anyway.
One other thing I wanted to mention completely off of capital projects and stuff that idea came from Homero, and a great idea, but we reached out to all of the district rangers and their fire support staff, knowing that they're shorthanded this fire season. We give them a contact list of all of our road yards, the people in the road yards, and the kind of water trucks that we have at those road yards, and told them if they have, we'll be happy to support initial response if we're available to come help them try to knock something down if it happens in the hurry. We don't intend to stay there, you know, beyond whatever we can support to begin with, and they were all very pleased to hear that and looking forward to working with us if we do, if that comes to.
And I, for one, do appreciate that too. And and we do help them every year in the fact of keeping those bladders up and stuff like that Tommy started years back. So that's a huge plus for them, especially this year. So if there's no other questions or comments, I'll let you go, Steve, if that's all you have.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Steve, thank you.
Facilities is next.
We are ready.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to say a few things, Chairman. I think we've heard some pretty interesting things today. One of the things that stands out, Monday we started doing chip seal, and I don't know in how many years. The early reports back is the team is being very successful with what they're doing. And they've got a week and a half left of chip sealing, in-house chip sealing, that helps really extend the dollar on pavement preservation. Another interesting thing was the presentation that Glenn provided. And I'm a little bit familiar with it. And so I can't brag about it a whole lot, but they really took the position that we had last year. We were here in front of you asking you to fund Agile Fleet. And between that time and today, they have turned their data and the way they utilize that data to make decisions completely around.
Right.
And we heard from Dart, I think, some pretty very interesting things, some things that are going to be happening very soon. The base level engineering is, to me, having been a floodplain manager once upon a time, is very interesting because it expedites and it facilitates how people can determine their base flood elevation and the landfill and what we've heard about the work we're going to be doing there. I think all of these have been, I think, very exciting things for me to listen to, and speaks about the team moving forward in the right direction.
Homer, I for one want to tell you guys too, and everything that we've seen so far, and I'm sure what's coming in facilities, it's been outstanding, the things that has gotten done in the direction we're turning into right now, as far as I'm concerned. It's finally, these things are coming together. We're getting what we need to make the decisions we're going to have to make here pretty shortly. And so I really appreciate all this work that you guys have all done all the way around. It's really good. And like our YouTube viewers and everybody that can see it and listen to it now, this is good. This just gives them a lot of good information that, even though I know Tim puts out at his Tunnel Basin meetings, I share with the people in meetings that I'm at, but still, the more people understand what we're doing here and where we're headed, the better it is. Transparency is always better. So thank you guys so much for all of it.
Very good. So why don't we start with the first slide, and it's the last time we're going to talk about the Pace and Probation Team Center. But it is
Mr. Chair,
it is just
can I
a remarkable.
wait just a minute?
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
I also, the other thing I like about the way it's, and I'd like to pat Homero also on the back on this. I think that with his leadership, they've been able to focus in directions that they may not have otherwise. I like the way we're doing this. It not only helps us make decisions, but I think it also improves the skill sets of the folks that are doing it. It's, to me, a multi-win situation to where we're enhancing not only our ability to do our job and management right all the way through down to the ones that are actually doing it. And I recognize that, appreciate it, and Homer, I'd like to thank you for helping make that happen also. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Tommy. Go ahead, Homer.
Thank you, and it's all team effort. And this is what I'm going to talk about, this first slide. It's about teamwork. It's what my note says right here on my slide, teamwork. And it was teamwork all around, not only with the people that were going to be using the building, but our team. And our team approached it with the idea, and Chris is back here representing facility management and will help me out with any questions. But the team was guided by schedule and budget. And sometimes we can't be perfect to that, but they always have that as a focus, helps guide you through the project. And actually, they were very successful. $160,000. They remodeled almost 6,000 square foot of a facility, and that was a remarkable accomplishment. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some of the things that we're currently doing. The Northern Gila County Health Building, the old Payson building. Basically, we poured concrete, we tore down the roof, we put up the trusses, we put up the walls. We are completely remodeling that building. It'll be like a new building when we get done. 3,000 square feet. The design for the building is exactly what the health department wanted. We sat with them and they said, this is what they want, this is what they need, and that's what they're going to be getting. There's no structural walls on the inside that are going to get in the way. And we plan to complete this October of 2020, this year. And the work that is being contracted out to local contractors. There's 5 local contractors and a 6th one that is from the valley but has a house in Pine. They're going to be doing the concrete, the roofs, the drop ceiling, the drywall, and the flooring. The internal team on the other side is going to be doing the internal plumbing, the electrical, the interior wall framing, the windows, and the mechanical. So we're going to be doing some of the work. Others are going to be helping us with some of the heavy lift. It's again a 3,000 square foot building. We're going to complete the total construction for about $350,000. Next. Globe Jail renovation. This is a work in progress. We have done some of the engineering. We have decided, based on the engineering, that we're going to replace 4 existing evaporative coolers, their supply fans, and the gas-fired boilers, and we're going to replace them with 4 new roof-mounted gas packs. And we're going to repair the roof at the same time. All of us know that Bob Hickman retired. Bob Hickman offered to, if we needed him, to come back part-time. We're gonna work with him to bring him back. This is gonna be one of his projects. There's a number of additional slides that I'm going to show. We have a lot of buildings we're going to work on. One of the focuses, working with Chris, one of the focuses we're going to do is we're going to assign a person to a building, so that a person has some ownership. That is his building, and so not all of us are spread over 10 buildings. And working with Chris, we're going to decide who gets what building. I may get a couple, but they're going to be co-shared with one of the team members. Okay, but we're going to work together. And in this example, we probably will focus Mr. Hickman to help us with this, working with Chris. We expect to start late May, early June. On the renovation itself, we need to work out with the sheriff all the details. This is something that needs to be done in phases, and we hope to complete the work early in September of this year. This is a $1 million project. We've received some early indication of price, and we're within budget. Last time when I talked to Bob, it was $850,000 for the construction. They spent already it says here $3,362 in some early engineering. So we hope to start moving on that very soon. Next slide. New Globe Animal Shelter. This is a 7,400 square foot facility with a 730 square foot sally port. It'll have 27 dog kennels, 20 cat cages. It's going to be equipped to function as a real animal shelter. It's going to have a surgical suite, a sally port, the admin offices, greeting, adoption rooms, washer and dryer, animal bathing, and the food storage, and a food storage area. It has a budget of $3 million. At this point in time, we're doing well against the $3 million. We're about 2.8, and we're not going to let it creep beyond that. We're trying to hold it at 2.8 at this point in time. Design will be complete in July of this year. They're moving very fast. It's a very easy build and design because it's in the middle of nowhere. We're not in the middle of a town like in Payson, and it is our property and surrounded by our property. Construction is supposed to start September 2020, and that looks like it's going to happen as scheduled. Current design, we're about 30% on the design. And very soon we'll be bringing something to you to show you what it's actually going to look like. Okay. Next slide. New Payson multi-purpose complex. This is actually an 11,000 square foot multi-purpose complex that you've heard about to house the Board of Supervisors, our boardroom for our meetings, our recorder's office, the assessor's office, as well as offices for the treasurer and the school superintendent and the county manager. This complex will also function as a Superior Court jury trial location. So we're making it a multi-purpose facility. The design is on target to be completed August of 2020. Construction will start in November, and it starts in November because we're waiting for the North County Health Building to be completed, which is scheduled for October, and then we demolish the buildings that are on site. We're going to be doing the demolition in-house, and then turning over the vacant lot, half vacant lot to the contractor to start in November. And that's why you see a gap between design and construction. This is a $4.7, almost $4.8 million project. It's all inclusive, and we've worked very hard to keep it to that level. Building jury superior court buildings is somewhat expensive, but we've doubled up on the cost reduction and the cost containment. Working with the designer and working with the construction company. They have done like 4 or 5 very detailed estimates at this point in time, and I say detailed even though the design's not completed, but they have thrown at us 70-page documents on the budgeting that they do as we ask them to contain the cost. So I'm impressed with core construction and the work that they've done. And we're gonna hold everybody to the budget.
So, looking at this, James, and you remember we were working on that lease for that one building out there that was going to cost almost the cost of us building our own. So this is going to be a huge benefit for the county right there that I see. Plus, it's going to give the courts a place that they can work out of too. So we're on the right track on this.
I absolutely agree. That was well over $1 million for 5 years, and this will be a beautiful addition to the Payson area, used for the public, and an amazing contribution that'll stand for years. Mm-hmm. So it is a really good deal.
Go ahead, Homer.
And we'll also be bringing to you the floor layout and a conceptual view of the building to the board in the very near future. Next slide, please. The Michelson Building. The Michelson Building is a partnership. This project is a partnership in cooperation with the City of Globe, Freeport, McMoran, and Capstone Mining. We're going to contribute $100,000, and the rest of the partners are going to contribute the rest, $200,000. We're working with, right now, we have removed the asbestos from the building. We're working on some of the structural engineering that's required and working with the City of Globe on the layout, some of the layout details. We have been, this is an in-house kind of project that we're going to do ourselves, but we were depending on inmates. The available inmates has slowed it down a little bit. But this is another project that Mr. Hickman will get as something for him to carry forward, working with Chris in the near future. This is again, it's $100,000 to us, but it's a $300,000 project.
So on this one, James, do you want to tell everybody what the purpose of this building is going to be when it's finished?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it is a business incubator. Will be focused on helping small businesses, to support them, to help them walk through the process of starting a small business, and to get them the tools and resources, financing, everything that a person wants to start a small business, that they will have the use of this. Anybody in Gila County can come and use these facilities and this service to support and strengthen small businesses. It's also a place where people can come that have just like a small shop, one person that does architectural work, whatever it might be, that they can come and lease a space, work there, and then others that can come and have discussions about the different things that can happen of housing within Globe, housing within Payson, or wherever it might be. So it's really to strengthen and support the infrastructure and to strengthen and support small businesses in our communities.
Exactly. And so this is going to be a really good deal for the county and the City of Globe and everyone. And so I really, You know, I want to thank Linda Audinetto. That's a huge part of this for pushing this and the concept and all that. And I'm really glad we're able to do this with this building rather than just let it fall down around our ears. So this is really good.
I'd like to specifically acknowledge Freeport McMoran that committed $150,000 from their community investment funds. I sent to Capstone, I sent them since Freeport was assisting, I sent them, asked them if they could help us out with the engineering, to actually supply the engineers to do the engineering work there. And they said, well, how about if we send you, I don't know, $25,000 to cover the cost of the engineering. So
Yeah.
the community sees how important it is, and they're stepping up and putting dollars into this project as well.
The partnership on this is great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really great. So thank you. Go ahead, Homer.
Okay, so we're targeting late spring completion of next year, May 2021, for the Michelson building. Next slide, please. Payson Sheriff's Office remodel. An interesting story on that. Our architect for the Payson complex is a firm by the name of Architecton. They have a lot of experience in building buildings for police, jails, those type of buildings. So we sat with the sheriff's team and the Architecton team in this building, and we talked for probably 4 hours about what would be required as a remodel. And then we walked another 2 hours through the building. And I could see that Architecton was frustrated. And so the next day I called them up and I said, the way you need to think about it is you need to gut the administration office, and you need to configure what it would take to start from scratch on the inside. Because the changes are there's so many changes. They're changing basically every wall. And he responded, he thought that was probably an appropriate approach to the remodel of this building. It's an extensive remodel on the inside with a kitchen and laundry that are going to be relocated as an addition to the building. And we set aside $1 million, and we're probably going to need the full $1 million for this remodel. And that's part of the bond money. It was originally $1.25 million with a Sally port, but the Sally port got taken off of this project, and it's part of the multi-purpose complex building. So we still have the $1 million that basically we originally set aside for this work, and we're gonna hold ourselves accountable to that.
So when I look at all that we're doing under our capital projects, all the projects, this is the one right here that it can't get done soon enough. With the way that is set up and the way liabilities are today and things of that nature, that building could cost us a ton of money if we don't get in there and fix these things that need fixed and changed. So this thing needs to happen sooner than later, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will speak with Architecton. One of the things we were trying to get the multipurpose building in a place where the design was almost complete before we would start working on the sheriff's remodel. But I will tell them that there's from the board's perspective, there's an urgency.
When we looked at all this, remember back when, James, the driving force was the courts needing space in Payson. That's what started everything, and they desperately did. They do need that. But then this was the next one, and I didn't realize the shape this was in and the way it's set up and everything and where we're at with it until I got to checking into it more. So, yeah, this one needs done.
Now, just so that Chairman and Board, just so that we don't mislead you, the remodel of the Sheriff's Office is the remodel of the administration side of the building, not the holding facilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, good. Next slide, please. And the regional drainage. Not too long ago, we approached the board for approval of this project. It's an intergovernment agreement with the town of Payson, actually also with Northern Gila County Sanitary District. They're going to pay for the 10-inch sewer line that goes from the Beeline Highway along Frontier to Colcord. I just got an email from them that they would do. They're actually going to install it as long as we pay for the pavement on top. At one time, we were thinking we would have to foot the entire bill for that, but that's the partnership that they're bringing to the table. I need to come to you with an IGA to document that, and I will very shortly in the next couple of weeks. But this is the drainage project. We're trying to get the design. We talked to some designers. We have a scope of work. We're finalizing the scope of work. It's something that I need to make sure the town of Payson is okay with. And in the next week or so, the next board meeting or the following board meeting, I'll be coming to you with a contract for the engineering firm that's going to design the regional drainage. The firm that we're talking to is talking about completing the design in a couple of months, maybe 3 months, and we can get the work started before we start actually building before we start working on the building site. And that's basically the plan. It's another reason why when we talked about the multipurpose complex building, we had a November start date. That's to allow us to try to implement this regional drainage project before then. And we're working, spending as much time as need be to try to make this happen as soon as we can. It's another $1 million project, which we fund 50% and Town of Payson funds the other 50%.
And so right now you're still looking, it's going to take the full $1 million, Homero, to do that?
Yes.
You think?
Every time I turn around, there's another little thing that we need to address.
Don't turn around anymore.
Try not to. Okay, but there was a contingent, when I presented to the board, I did point out that there was a large contingency there. Mm-hmm. And that's what allows us to take care of some of these things that weren't brought up at the very beginning. The last slide is about some security upgrades. And upgrades that happened in the past fiscal year 2018, where we, on the Globe Road shop just right here, we put in a security entrance to keep folks from entering the building without first having to identify themselves. That's in the past. 2019, there was very little to no security upgrades, but in 2020, this year, we have actually done a lot of significant amount of work. Central Heights, we put in 9 card readers in the facility, limiting the ability for our visitors to actually come into the office area, but they have to step up to a lobby kind of area, identify themselves, and then if need be, and if the staff finds it appropriate, to let them into the building. Each of those card readers cost approximately $5,000, and so we spent $35,000 on Central Heights to do that. There are some, you go back and you visit your customers, you find out the lobby's not quite working this way, the delivery man this or that, and so we're working with them to make sure that we take all the dissatisfiers out of play. We're also working right now, Payson Admin Building. We're trying to make the lobby coming into the community development area safe for our staff, both from a pandemic now viewpoint, but as well from a security standpoint. And we're also trying to make the entrance to the boardroom more secure. And so we're budgeting to spend $56,000. Some of it has already been spent at that Payson Admin Building. There's some work that's happening at the Payson Recorder's Office, some small work, as well as the Justice Superior Court. For next year, we would like to budget $70,000 for a Justice and Superior Court lockdown, both at Payson and in Globe. An ability for the judge to lock the building down to make sure that the courtroom can proceed in a safe manner if he deems that to be necessary. And the following year, we'd like to work on a gate at the Payson Road Yard so that the gate can be activated by a cart reader. Today, you have to get out. It's rain, sleet, snow, whatever. The gate is actually hard to push. I've had to use it a few times. It can be done, but it would be a lot easier to have a gate that is that can be activated, motor-driven, to allow people to go in and out during the evening hours and the night hours. Those are some of the things that we're doing from a security upgrade. We're going to continue to visit with the buildings. Chris and his team, Christina Knox actually played a big role in visiting Central Heights. She's going to continue to work with Chris, and we're going to canvass all the buildings and continue to build on the things that we need to do in the future. This is an ongoing project as time goes on. And that concludes the buildings that I wanted to talk about today that I felt were important to talk about. We get lost sometimes in thinking that we're about construction. No, we're not about construction. Chris is about maintenance. Okay, maintenance first, and we can't lose sight of the fact. And so his team is constantly looking on the work orders and looking whether we completed them, when did we complete them, et cetera. They continue to do that, and his staff works on that every day.
Thank you, Homer. Tommy, are you still with us?
Oh, I am, Mr. Chair. I won't drag this out too much longer. I agree. We need to finish what we've got started, but for my money, I think we need to upgrade that sheriff administration building just as quick as we can. I think we have. You're talking to somebody who 55 years ago or so lost a first cousin, and there's a 16-year-old kid that they were teaching a lesson, he and three more. And in my opinion, it's been a boondoggle to start with, and it's been a boondoggle ever since. And we've done everything we can to make it a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and it's still a sow's ear. Anything we can do, I think just from a liability standpoint, we need to really we need to focus on that. And I've thought that for years, and have never had the ability to actually get it to this stage of the game where we could. Every other project is important. But I think that one is critical. I think once we have health department up and running, I agree. I think that if there's any way to turn our attention to that and just get it done, it would be the smartest thing we could do with a Sally Port in the back and the things that I think we need to do to bring it up to some kind of a better safety level than what we've got. I'm enough of an old bootlegger myself that it didn't take much to figure out how to breach what little bit of security we've got around there. And Mr. Chair, I really appreciate, again, this broader look at everything, and in a way that we can understand it, get our arms around it, share it with folks that want to know what's going on here. And Homer, I really want to thank you for doing this. I'm dead serious about today is all about everybody, I think, stepping up a notch and getting us to where we need to be in the climate that we're in today to be able to share what we're doing, why, how, when, where, and so forth. And it'll make all of our jobs so much easier. And I want to thank everybody from top to bottom. And Mr. Chair, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much, Homero. In my construction yard, I've had together Everybody Achieves More for Team, TEAM, for years. And today you've mentioned team many, many, many times. And so thank you very much as we go through all of our projects from our vehicle fleets to our landfills and how they're operating, and to the projects that you've helped us sew together to work on all of these and to get our in-house going with some of the construction work and some of the chip seal work and things. So I just want to say thank you very much for being very much involved to help create these teams that have helped us create a lot of the things that have come before us today.
Thank you.
Good job, Homer.
Thank you.
You guys have come a long ways. Everybody has. And so I'm really excited about these projects we have on the board right here behind us. And it's going to mean a lot to our county and our people, in-house and our constituents. So it's a really good thing. The one thing that I don't want us to lose focus of in Payson is that acreage that we have along 260. You know, I personally would like to see eventually we start looking at that real serious, because we're not going to use it It's obvious to me of that from where we're going now, and listening to Steve and his part of the landfill property and all that. So, you know, and I've told you from a long time ago, James, when we started the capital projects, that, you know, we looked at that, and from an affordability standpoint, we couldn't do it. You know, that was obvious. But that land is worth a lot of money. And so somewhere along the way, we need to take a look at that, I believe. Now, these other two may not, but I do. And that will go a long ways to paying this off that we're putting into these other places. So down the road, I will be talking to you guys about that.
Okay. Thank you. I've heard a couple of messages. One of them, do what we can to speed up the work that we're doing on the sheriff's office in Payson. Number two, that you appreciate the work that the staff, that the team has done, and I will make sure that to pass on those kind of comments and my thank yous for that. And three, to work with the county manager of that property and see what maybe start with an appraisal for that property and find out what it's really worth, and start to have a longer range plan as to where that property fits or does not fit in with the work that we will continue to do in the longer term.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Homer.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. So we have come a long ways on all of this, so I'm going to jump in there, and we're going to go ahead and go to call to the public. Cheryl, do you have anybody in Payson for call to the public?
No, sir.
And we do not hear. So, Tommy, do you have an update for us that you'd like to share?
Mr. Chair, not that's worth taking any time for. It's just running the same circles, lots and lots of time on the phone. I think we're beginning to get a bit of a better understanding of opening up around here. It's not without its bumps and lumps, but it may be smoothing out once everybody can try to get started. It's going to be interesting to see what that really means in the long run. And I am now looking at how can we help. We've done the health thing. How can we truly help and support and get in front of and give ideas to the businesses as they struggle, because they're going to struggle. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tommy. Tim?
No, just real quick, still having meetings. They're all over the phone, but still trying to stay in touch with the public to see what we can do to help our rural areas and things.
Mr. Chair, the other thing, and I meant to mention this, on Wednesday of this week, WIR, instead of having their meeting in some far-flung place, we'll be having a telephone conference from 9 to noon with some pretty interesting subjects and talks. Along with that is I've been trying to get to somebody to share down there and haven't done it yet, a 75-page new document the Forest Service is putting out along with NACO about Forest Service, public land rancher collaboration, for want of a better word, quickly, that we all need to be taking a look at. It will be highlighted at this meeting and basically launched. I think that some of us need to take a look. I'm going to go back today, and if I have to run and have someone bring you a copy today down there, I'll have us do that. I'll also get you the information on how to weigh in on this meeting if you'd like to, if you don't have it already. I'm not sure how wide of a loop that they threw to get information to folks that would like to attend the meeting. So I'll get that to everybody here in just a bit. The final announcement came through yesterday with the full agenda. But tomorrow at 9 to noon, Arizona time, is going to be will be that meeting if you're interested in checking in on it. And that's it, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Tommy. And we do have that down here already. Kathy's been showing that to me. So, yeah, thanks for that. Tim, would you like to continue?
Yeah, I'm still having my public meetings there over the phone. So we're still trying to stay in touch with the people in rural areas on what we can do for them and how we can help them with not only the visitors but with the COVID and keep them informed of some of the projects that we're doing. And I will have a Roosevelt Dumpster Day on Saturday the 16th, where we've made arrangements with the church there to be able to set a dumpster so that people can do some cleanup there around Roosevelt. And hopefully it'll help that area stay a little cleaner. And so that's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. So I'm going to make this quick. And last night we had a broadband meeting in Winkleman, and Homero presented to the council down there. Did an awesome job. It was good. And they were real receptive to all of it and interested in it. So that was good. A while back we were contacted by Resolution Copper regarding projects in Gila County here that could use some funding during this pandemic. And so we went back to them with the idea of helping the senior center in Hayden. And so they did come up with quite a significant amount of money for Hayden. That's going to be a huge plus for those folks down there. And that's going to be going forward. It's going to pass through us to the town of Hayden. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And I really appreciate Resolution for doing this. That was a huge help. And then also today, we had asked them for some more masks and gloves and things like that, along with our health department for the senior center and for the town of Winkleman. And so I want to thank the health department and Resolution again for coming forward with all that and helping us with acquiring what they need down there. So that was really good. The other thing I had here, and I was going to read it, but we've come a long ways today, and I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to tell you in a nutshell what it is. But also, I want to give it to you, James, and I want it on our website. And so this comes from our Gila County Health and Emergency Management. That department has been doing an awesome job. And apparently, in the last few days, there's been some back and forth, maybe on Facebook and some other places, about testing. What's happening in Payson, who's doing it versus what's happening down here, and what our health department's been doing and what we have planned. So this spells it out. This is it. And so rather than go through and spend another little while reading this, I'm going to go ahead and we'll put it on our website that everybody on YouTube or wherever can go on our website and pull this up and read it on that. And then if there's anybody that can't do that and would like to see it, I'm sure we can make arrangements to send it to them or whatever we need to do to get it out there. We had asked Michael to do this at the last minute, and he did it, and he did a really good job putting it together and everything. But I'm not going to go to the time now to read it. So with that, I really want to thank you guys for the oh, I'm sorry, James. I usually start with you first, too. Go ahead.
That's a signal that I've said enough today. I just wanted to point out that we had county managers meeting with CSA on Friday, and preliminary numbers, first numbers for March for the state revenues. They had projected, I don't know the details, I can't remember them right now, but just by a ratio that they had projected revenues, if they had was a $3 million decrease. The decrease is actually only $2 million, so it's a 30% better than the decline that they had been projecting. So there's a big cut. Revenues have dropped significantly, but it's not quite the big dip that they were thinking at first. But these are just very preliminary numbers.
And thank you for sharing that, James, because I got to tell everybody, last Saturday at noon, I was in Walmart in Payson, and it looked like Black Friday. It was unreal, the amount of people that was in Payson Walmart. The parking lot was full. There was no social distancing in Payson Walmart. You couldn't have done it if you tried. And so, I come out there and I'm really thinking about revenues, taxes, and the money we're losing. And I go on down, I go to the barber shop. Of course, we're standing outside in line to get in the door and everything. So I'm talking to people on the sidewalk about this, and they're like, oh, you think it's bad today? You should have seen it the last 2 weekends. It was much worse. So, all this time I'm thinking, well, maybe maybe it's not going to be as bad as we think. I know we're going to have a loss, but maybe not as big of a loss. And also the amount of people that was coming through Payson over the weekend, going up over the rim, probably headed for your country, Homer. It was wall-to-wall people. The lakes, all the parking lots at the lakes, you couldn't have gotten our vehicle in them if you tried. Camps everywhere, you know. And then when I went home Sunday about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30, traffic's backed up to Little Green Valley just because they're trying to get through the intersections in Payson, bumper to bumper, both lanes. And so, it amazes me. It just really does. But so I'm really going to be curious to see what our hits are going to be. So thank you for that, James.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I want to thank you guys again for the presentations. It's really good. It was really good to hear and see. So with that, I'll close the meeting. Thanks again.